So now that we have a pretty good grasp on, what consumers are actually buying and a little bit of insight into the latest trends, let's talk a little bit about how to actually turn a profit from some of those products. My good friend Adam Lambert has pretty much made his entire career out of making, fast-growing mid-sized breweries more profitable and more efficient, both on the sales side as well as operations. Wears a lot of different hats as the VP of Sales in all of his stops along the way. He's had stints at Rogue, Dogfish Head, and now he's in Michigan at New Holland Brewing. He is very, very passionate about the business, pretty much as passionate as they come when it comes to actually making money and making a brewery the most profitable it can be. So that's what we're talking about today. He really understands how to delicately balance the need for continued innovation as well as the needs of operating an efficient brewery. So he's going to touch on a lot of those things today in a presentation appropriately titled Profitable Business Planning. So without further ado, Adam Lambert, come on up.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, bro. Which one? This push forward. All right, I'll make this short because I know we're time crunched and we're 20 minutes from lunch, so I'll keep this nice and simple. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, I spent the last 20 years, next year will be my 20th year as a beer supplier. I've spoke twice on this topic already at CBC, so I feel like I'm getting pinned into a corner here. But Chris and I talked about, it's one thing to plan business, is another thing to plan profitable business. So what we talked about was how we take all aspects of basically owning a brewery and make it profitable. So I broke it down into like 5 different topics that I'll talk about real quick. One thing that with all the deals and everything that we've been seeing today, with this fast growth of the segment and fast growth of a lot of breweries, it's okay to be in the middle ground. It's okay to not grow 50 to 100% year in, year out. And I think in order for people to become more profitable, you have to be comfortable in this middle ground. Having modest, executable goals is actually pretty normal, and it's a measure of great success. I think growing in a controlled, methodical fashion is actually better than this explosive growth that a lot of people are having right now. So I really enjoy living in that world. I've worked at Dogfish where we had this explosive growth. Where I am right now, being at a 15% 15% barrelage growth and a 25% revenue growth is great. It's profitable. It's fun to manage. So I think being comfortable knowing that I'm not going to grow in this mass, huge way and grow in a nice, easy, methodical way is actually a good way of doing business. The things that I wanted to cover today were basically how you manage your business in terms of production, marketing, distribution, managing your retailers, people management, and sales spends and budgeting. I'm going to just kind of high spot on each of those topics, but really give you some things to think about in terms of when you look at those, how you can become profitable in those areas. I'm old school. I got to go paper, pen up here, so bear with me on this one. When you're talking about production and you want to be a profitable business, you got to look at like what your available capacity is. I mean, it's really simple to go, hey, I want to be 20, I want to be 30, I want to be 40, I want to be 50,000 barrels. You got to be able to look at what is really available to you to sell during that year. I mean, it's easy to go, well, I've got a 50, 100,000 barrel brewery or facility, but when you really go, hey, I can only get 20,000 barrels of beer out of that facility this year, build your business plan, build your model based on that capacity available to you. A lot of people don't goal a revenue per barrel. I've always goaled how many dollars I'm going to get based on the capacity that's available to me. And having that goal internally and knowing that goal and working towards that goal really allows you to be that much more profitable and really allows you to know the revenue that's available to you during that period of time or during the year. Know the style of beer that you're going to make. That affects, obviously, the capacity. It affects your revenue. Understanding that, making a pale ale versus making an IPA are totally different in terms of throughput and output. I know I'm a sales guy up here, but I've spent more time in production than the average sales guy between my stints at Rogue and Dogfish and now at New Holland. So I kind of understand a lot of this stuff, which really affects your business planning in terms of the sales end of it. Understand your packaging mix, knowing that your keg to case ratio really affects your revenue at the end of the day. I work on a model right now, it's 70-30, 70% cases, 30% draft. We put all our limited releases, moved them out of half barrels into sixtels. It's all a great way to make more money. And then the other piece that there's a lot of people right now that are spending a lot of money on equipment and CapEx. I wrote a little note right here. It says, kids wear hand-me-down clothes, right? I mean, if you've got children, you pass them down to the next children. That's what you should be looking at your facility. It's great to look and to spend all this money on the shiny new toy, and if you can afford it, that's great. But if you want to make money, you want to be frugal, and you want to do this and have longevity in what you're doing, see if you can stretch your equipment. Look for something that's a little, that may be used, or it's a better value, versus just going out and spending all your money on CapEx and equipment. I wanted to talk a little bit about marketing and branding and what can I do to create value. We're an affordable luxury, right? Create your brand that resonates to the consumer, so when they're drinking it, hey, this is something, it's a $10.99 six-pack, it's a $5.99 bomber, whatever it is, but I can afford this and it's luxury. So when you're working on your branding, you want to be able to create something that what I call the eye of the beer holder understands and looks at it and goes, wow, this is great for the money that I spend on this. The consumer, we were just talking about that in the previous presentation. The consumer wants a story, they want credibility, they want heritage. So work on those items, create your story, create something that resonates with the consumer, create something that can be handed down as the consumer's going in and grabbing that six-pack off the shelf. The things that you got to do is you got to support, once you get your beer to market, once you get your beer to the distributor, you got to support the beer getting off the shelf. Now, that can come in a multitude of fashions, tasting programs, festivals, events, whatever it may be, but I've just been having a lot of discussions over the last couple of weeks about, hey, it's great, you got my beer to Michigan. It's great that we signed up with a distributor. It's great, I got you in this account. What are you doing to help me get that beer off the shelf? And we, as brewers, have to spend some time to figure out programs and plans and create synergies that get that beer to pull off the shelf. It's one thing to get it on the shelf, it's another thing to get it off. So we got to work on that. Social media, I talk about, it's one big message. I talk about social media, it's kind of, social media is a tree, right? And Facebook and Twitter, those are all branches of it. Having one big message over here and working the branches towards that one big message is going to really help you in marketing and branding. Point of sale, again, we were having this discussion at dinner last night. No matter what, how big you are, how little you are, how great you think your brand is, you need to support the distributor and support your accounts with point of sale. It can be as simple as some great tackers, one good neon, whatever it may be. No matter how strong your brand is, you've got to support with some POS. And distributors and your retailers are going to ask for it. But you don't have to spend a ton of money on crazy POS and crazy design. Just get the most simple stuff, but get things that are going to work for your accounts. I put on here graphics. If it's free, let your distributors have it. I think it's fairly simple to upload and to create a page for your distributors to go on. Distributors have got sign shops. They've got great access to creating media for you guys and for us too. So allow your distributor access to your graphics and allow them access to your label and your artwork. These guys can do a ton of legwork for you guys. You got to make sure that you have it available for them. Okay, so now I want to talk about distribution. becoming important to your wholesalers. It's pretty easy to become important to a business partner and to your customer if you have simple, obtainable goals that are easy to execute. Years and years ago, I used to fight tooth and nail to get as many SKUs into my distributors as possible. I used to jam in as much as possible. Right now, my model is to get 2 or 3 SKUs in with my wholesaler, create a business plan that's fairly simple and easy to execute, deliver a bunch of small victories for my wholesaler, and then move on to the next project. That's what we got to do with these guys. The days of jamming these guys with 100 different SKUs, making beer, delivering it, leaving, coming back another month and asking, hey, how's it going? Those days are over. So becoming important to your distributor and making it simple for your distributor to execute is super critical right now. Creating value for your partners. I always say people like to do business with people they like. So if you're easy to work with and you're fun to work with and your distributor gets you and you're talented and you have a great time, your distributors are going to spend more time and they're going to do more things for you. And you're going to sell more beer and you're going to make more money. So be that guy, be that person that really creates a bond with your wholesaler. Some of my best friends in the world, even though I don't do business with some of them, are distributors. And they're great people to be partners with. And they're a lot of fun. And if they like you, they're going to do more for you. And you're creating a value and a relationship there. And you're going to sell more beer at the end of the day. Deliver profitability. Again, back to that wholesaler, profits drive mind share. Delivering profitability is easy as keeping your distributor in stock. Don't overextend yourself. Don't make a bunch of promises that you can't commit to. If you're delivering beer to your wholesaler day in, day out, you're not running them out of stock, you're delivering profits. You move up in the ranks within that distributor portfolio. And then I always say there's no Rosetta Stone for distributor language. Distributors speak different languages. They speak in tongues. They talk about CEs and stuff like that. If you're going to become a great business planner and you're going to deliver profits and you're going to make money, you got to speak your distributor's language. You got to understand how they talk. You got to know what they talk about. You got to understand the measurements that wholesalers measure. And getting that faster and learning it as quick as you can, you're going to sell more beer. You're going to make more money. I'm scooting through this fast. I know everybody's hungry. I can hear the stomachs growling. How do I make money for my customers? Retailer and channel, I call it retailers and channel management. Understanding this world is super important. I was talking to Amy last night about beverages and more. If you go into your distributor and you're launching or you're writing a business plan or you're planning with them annual business plans, going in there and actually knowing who your account base is and identifying them, you're going to endure yourself to your distributor. Coming in and being like, hey, can you just sell some beer somewhere? That's not going to work. Coming in, meeting with your wholesaler, knowing who the accounts are, talking to your wholesaler about the accounts that you want to be in, that's going to make you that much more valuable to your distributor. Partnering up with the right people. This is, I was talking to Amy last night. Beverages and More here in California is a destination for beer, wine, and spirits. Find people out there that are like-minded with what your values and what you're trying to accomplish on your planning process. Figure out who they are and get together with those guys as quick as you can. I put on here creating value for your retailers and consumers, help others that help you. I really think that if you go in and you talk to your accounts and that you show them how much money they can make on your beer and how important your product is to them, you're creating a relationship with those guys. They're going to have the same conversation with their consumers that come in, and you're creating this trail, and you're creating this synergy where everybody along the line is selling more beer for you. And then, again, I was talking about this last night, understanding a good proposition. What's in it for you? If somebody comes in and says, hey, I got a deal, it's not a good deal. Okay, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out this people deal. There's no easy way to do it. People are that much more important right now. So how and when you hire people is kind of, it's a moving target at this point. But you got to be able to understand like where your marketing power stops and your people power begins when you're figuring out who to hire, when to hire, how many people, and what their comp is. I always say hire smart. I know that's an old cliche and it's pretty easy to talk about that. Hire people that have an incredible work ethic, dedicated, they're disciplined. Hire people that are hungry. It's pretty easy to say that, but I think a lot of us can get a sense of people when they're hiring if that's in the person's bones. I always talk about the last two questions when I'm interviewing and hiring are, did you ever have a paper route? And did you ever play team sports? So when you're hiring, that to me says, if that person had a paper route, they got up early, they folded the newspapers, they stuck the rubber band on there, and they're out at 6 a.m. riding their bike, chucking newspapers. Or if they're on team sports, you know that they've got a win attitude. Compensation when you're hiring people, compensation, having skin in the game as a salesperson. When I was at Rogue, I was for the first 4 years, I was 100% commission. So having skin in the game really allows people to excel. When you're hiring, also understand that there are a bunch of hidden costs. Obviously, there's travel, there's meals, there's events, there's hotels. So when you're hiring people, understand that there are hidden costs to hiring. No matter what, there are sales spends. It does cost money to make money in the sales environment. So when you're planning and you're thinking about your business and you're looking at your world, know that no matter what, you're going to have to invest into your sales department or your sales world. How do I find out what to spend? Breaking down your financial capacity. I always do, every single month I have a cost PERS. I look at what it costs me per CE, per barrel, per percentage of revenue in order to run my sales department. So understand that there is a way to measure that. And then being comfortable in measuring those spends and being methodical. Every single month, I break down what it's costing me to sell beer across the country. So being disciplined and being able to understand how to do that is super important. And then when you are budgeting for sales spends, I always call it divvying out the buckets. Understand that there's a ton of different things, line items that you want to be able to budget towards. So, there's travel, meals, hotels, marketing, point of sale, incentives, festivals, samples. I mean, the list goes on and on. So when you are planning and you are budgeting and you're looking how you can make more money, make sure that you know that all those things are there and you're going to have to spend into those. And then basically in close, I kind of came up with some of the old adages here. Plan the work, work the plan. It's super important. I know I went through this really fast, but all the things that I talked about, you really have to work on business plans. But once you get that plan put together, don't just throw it over there on the shelf. You got to be able to take a look at it and work on it. No matter what, get comfortable in being profitable at any level. Right now, with all this crazy growth and everybody trying to reach, the next level in terms of the top 50 Brewers Association, it's okay to be in the middle of the pack. Methodical, slow growth is not a sin. Talking about making money is not a taboo. Get comfortable knowing that you are going to talk to your distributors. You are going to, again, this morning we saw the bankers, you are going to talk to your bankers about being profitable and talking about money. And then at the end of the day, we're not physicians, right? I mean, we're selling a lifestyle. I mean, let's be the most down-to-earth people that there are out there because all we're doing is selling beer day in, day out. So it really helps to leave the ego at the door. And that's it.
Let's sit on the couch for a couple minutes.
You throw me some softballs.
I'll try my best. I'll make it easy on you. So, we've talked about all the different brands out there, all the new breweries. I think 845 new brands this year. In the last Nielsen presentation, 4,000 breweries. I mean, it just seems like it's becoming like, so much more difficult to differentiate yourself. So, how do you guys do that at New Holland? How have you done it in, sort of previous lives? And, for the folks in the audience, like, what are some strategies for just being different? Because everyone is going to go to their wholesaler and talk about being profitable and kind of go through some of the points that you mentioned. But how do you stick out if everyone's saying the same thing?
Well, I think being methodical about how you approach your business with the distributor is super important. I mean, it's one thing to write the plan. It's another thing to follow up with the distributor on the plan. It's another thing to help them execute the plan. So being a great partner, but doing all the things that you said you were going to do is super important too. I think having an iconic brand, in terms of a beer like we have Dragon's Milk, beer, bourbon aged stout, imperial stout that's available year day in, day out, year round. Having a brand that is iconic like that is super important. Your liquid's got to be great. I mean, you got to have incredible liquid. I mean, spending money on QC and making great investments in production is important too. So I think it's a pronged approach to how you stand out. And again, all the small fundamentals that I talked about, the 5 or 6 points are super important too. I mean, again, having POS, having some manpower, investing in your sales department is super important.
At the end of the day, in your mind, what are the brands that are going to win out, or what kinds of brands are going to win out? We talked about this on the phone, like having creative brands. That's like a huge challenge. I mean, it's impossible to have a really super creative, unique, well-differentiated brand now because there is so much competition. So what are the ones that will ultimately win out at the end of the day? Well,
I think I was talking to Win and Doug about this at the break. There's some great pioneer brands out there that really allowed this what I call second or third generation craft breweries to be able to go to market. So I think, and they've got incredible heritage and a story, and they've toughed it out, and they had methodical, great growth. So I think there's a bunch of those brands that are out there that are always going to be strong, and they're going to continue to grow and be pioneers in our business. I don't know the other piece of it. I mean, I really don't know who's going to be that next. We've got all the venture capital coming in. A lot of that money is going to be used to protect business.
Right. Do you think we were talking about some of the established brands? Do you think that the flagship is still strong? I think of iconic individual brands like Fat Tire or Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, brands that have been around for a really long time. Do you consider or do you see that being the way it always is, having that flagship brand, or are we starting to get more to the point of hey, it's okay to have all these rotational SKUs? I mean, you guys kind of do that a little bit at New Holland.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that. Again, they're good questions. I wish I knew the answers. I'd be making more money than I am right now, right? Yeah, I think there's still a place, obviously, for iconic brands. But I mean, if you kind of look at what Sierra did, they got to a certain point, and then they, Torpedo and Beer Camp, and created some extra fanfare, which I think really helped the pale ale in general. So I don't know, I mean, our model right now, because the way that we're selling a $15.99 4-pack is our core lead brand. And never in my life would I have ever thought that that my top dog would be a $16 4-pack, but that's our lead iconic brand, and yet we do have a portfolio of other brands. But as we're going into new markets right now, we're just going with two styles. So we're not bringing this entire portfolio to market.
And that's just in an attempt to make it easier on your distributor partners to execute, or?
Yeah, it's making it easy on the distributor, being able, again, as I was talking about, being able to resonate to retailers, being able to resonate to the consumers, maximizing our capacity dollars per barrel, because Dragon's Milk is such a high ring. It's a great model for us to move forward with. And again, it's simple too. It's simple for our distributors to execute. It's 4 SKUs. yet they're making a ton of money on it. You guys can only imagine on a $16 4-pack of beer, how much money everybody along the line is making, and the consumer is still getting an incredible value at $16 for 4 beers.
Right. Was that process of, I guess, educating or convincing the wholesaler that, you know, they shouldn't need to chase the volumes with this brand, that it is going to be a lower volume product? Was that difficult?
No, not at all. I mean, I think, you know, and then I'm not a distributor, but distributors to a certain level know what their cost of goods are to deliver, right? Their operational costs are fixed to a certain extent. When you get to a certain size, you can kind of really figure it out. So you add on a golden case like Dragon's Milk on the back of the truck, where there's $20-$30 in a case of beer, or $50-$60 in a half barrel. You know, it's pretty easy for these guys to figure out. It's added profit. I'm going to make that stop anyway. I've got that truck moving. I've got a driver on it. I've got a lumper on there doing merchandising. You throw this extra case of beer, or extra 5 cases of beer on the back of that. I mean, it's great money.
Right. But the trucks aren't getting any longer.
Well, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I can't argue with that one.
So, kind of brings me back to the original point. How difficult is it going to be for, some of these emerging brands going forward to be the golden case that's on the back of the truck? And is there, is that still the right approach to think of it that way?
Yeah, I think, again, I'll go back to my presentation. I mean, if you've got a great plan and you're a great partner and you're fun to be with and you follow up on the things and you've got all the things that I talked about, I mean, really, like, this was a simplistic approach to business planning, just touching on a bunch of the topics that are important. If you deliver those things to your distributor and your distributor can execute simplicity, I think you're going to win. You're going to be part of that distributor portfolio. If you're a guy that just makes beer, you drop it off of the distributorship, you don't give them any support, you never go in for a meeting, you don't go call on any retail accounts, you don't do any festivals, events, you're not going to get on the back of that truck. I mean, it's simple. We, as brewers, no matter what size you are, have to up your game.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we, as an audience, need to go get some lunch. So let's do that.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Cheers.